Hey everybody, Rob from Crown of Thorns, and I just wanted to do a quick video today as sort of a midweek video. Right now, it is Sunday the 18th, just about 4 o'clock my time, Central Time. The video that I recorded a couple of weeks ago called The Plan of Salvation is actually premiering right now. I went on there for a little bit just to jump onto the live chat for a few moments. But I'm not able to do that as often as I would like to, and I apologize for that. But now that we're traveling to Pensacola to attend church, a lot of times what we'll do is after church is done, we will go and do all of our grocery shopping while we're in Pensacola because Florida has a much lower sales tax than Alabama. So it's actually cheaper for us to do our shopping on Sundays once we get out of church. We're already in Pensacola anyway. So, we just do our shopping, save a little bit on sales tax, and then we usually will go out for lunch. So by the time we get back home, the video is already either halfway through or sometimes already finished. So I'm not able to jump onto the live chat, but I'm going to try to make that work somehow. At the very least, try to do it on these midweek videos. So we shall see. So as I said, today's Sunday, so I just got home probably about a half hour ago. Had a great church service with Brother Breaker at the house church that we attend. We had 6 visitors, 3 different couples, and it's funny because 2 of the couples are traveling together. They came down here to Florida for a vacation. They live in Michigan, so we got to chatting about that. I think one of the couples was from the Detroit area. The other couple was from the Grand Rapids area. And so we just had a good time kind of talking about Michigan, I guess. But anyway, it was a great service and some good fellowship. And my wife wasn't able to come with me today. She had to work. She's really, really busy at work, so she wasn't able to make it, so I had to fly solo, which isn't so bad except for when I got to the grocery store. I was just lost. And you would think by now I'd know how to navigate through a grocery store. I guess I'm just so accustomed to my wife being there, I just kind of follow her. So it took me longer than usual, longer than it should, to get that done. But I finally got it done. Went to Walmart, also went to Dollar Tree, got some stuff there. And then I stopped on my way back from Pensacola in Milton, where my wife works, stopped to see her for a little bit. And then I had to make one more stop. I stopped in Century to get another propane tank. Because again, I buy it while I'm in Florida because you save on that sales tax. And it's quite a big difference. Florida sales tax is like 7%. Here in Alabama, it's 10%. You think, well, that's only 3%. I don't care. I've said it before. I'm cheap. I have deep pockets and short arms, is what they say. If I can save a dime, I'll do it. So anyway, that was that. But I wanted to make this video. Originally, I was going to do a midweek video on John chapter 4, the woman at the well. But I decided instead I would start today with a midweek video about John chapter 8. Actually starting in John chapter 7, the very last verse 53. And then we'll go through John chapter 8, verse 11. And the ironic thing about this, 7:53 through 8:11, one of the most pivotal stories in our New Testament, one of the great, beautiful stories centering around Jesus and this woman caught in adultery. The ironic part, the sad part of it, is that if you don't have a King James Bible, you're going to have a footnote in your Bible, your NIV, NLT, whatever else, saying that this story may not have even happened, that maybe it was added later on, and that there may be no substance to it. I've heard preachers who preach out of an NIV who said that. He said, "Yeah, we'll go over this part of John, but we take it with a grain of salt because we don't know for sure that this really happened because it's not in, our oldest and most reliable manuscripts," which is a lie right there. the manuscripts supporting your new translations are not the oldest. They're definitely not the most reliable. But even if they are the oldest, what does that matter? I've done videos on that before. Just because something is the oldest doesn't mean it's the most reliable at all. Okay? But that's beside the point. The point I'm trying to make, though, is that unless you have a King James Bible, your Bible's going to have some sort of a note, a notation of some sort, saying that, this may or may not have really happened, and the unreliable texts are the only ones that actually include this, something to that effect. And that's pretty sad, because this is a pivotal story. There's a whole lot we can take away from this story, and it's not a parable. It's an actual story, a true story, and it does belong there. Okay, again, yet another reason why you need to have a King James Bible and get rid of your satanic perversions. All right, so let's start in John chapter 7, verse 53. Okay, and it says, "And every man went unto his own house." Chapter 8, verse 1. Jesus went unto the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning he came again into the temple. Okay, so he came into the temple. Keep that in mind. And all the people came unto him, and he sat down and taught them. That's what a good preacher will do. He'll sit down and preach and teach people, right? By the way, I'm sure I've shown this before, but I really like this. This is a microphone, blue. It's called Snowball Ice. I don't know. I guess it kind of looks like a snowball. But I really like it. It captures really good sound. Hopefully, watch. This video will have horrible sound and whatever. But I've used it a couple of times before, and it's always worked good for me. I can't use it when I'm in front of the whiteboard, because I use a different camera for that, and that already has a built-in microphone and good sound anyway. But right now I'm not using my usual cameras. I'm recording right off my laptop. And so instead of using the built-in microphone on the laptop, I'm using this. So hopefully the sound is good. Who cares? Here we go. Verse 3. "And the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, they say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act." Okay, a couple of things. One, the most obvious. If she was caught in the very act of adultery, that necessitates a male counterpart, right? So where's he? Why are they not throwing him out there as well? So a little bit of hypocrisy there, a little bit of a double standard, admittedly. And secondly, in the very act. Now, unless these two were having this illicit affair out in the middle of the street, how is it that they caught them in the very act? Were they spying? Are they voyeurs? Are they looking in their windows and, those two aren't married and they're doing what... But look what you're doing. You're getting some sort of cheap thrill, I guess, peeping into other people's windows. Peeping Tom, I think they call those. So just a couple of things that immediately come to mind for me is that there's a whole lot of hypocrisy here. Double standards. But that is what religion creates. That's what religion is about, honestly. And that's why it's so nice. There's all these world religions, all these religions in the world. And those of us who are saved, we don't have religion. Religion is mundane. Religion is without heart. Okay, religion is just about rituals. Okay, and sometimes people say, "Oh man, I go to Burger King every Wednesday religiously." That would be me actually, because it's Whopper Wednesday. Anyway, but religiously just means it's a custom. I do it because that's what I've always done. There might not be any heart or even really any thought to it. I just do it. But do you see how empty that is? You know what I mean? And that's what religion is. It's a set of rules or doctrines that you just follow aimlessly, almost. What we have as saved individuals is a relationship with Christ, a whole different thing. So I don't subscribe to religion. I don't like religion. Okay? I don't like religious people, to be honest. I'll be nice to them, and I love them. Okay? But I don't like them. Just being honest. But that's what these Pharisees and scribes are. They're religious people. Zealots, in fact. Religious zealots. And the point to all of this isn't so much that they're picking on this woman, although that's part of it too. The bigger part of this is they're trying to make Jesus stumble. They want for him to fumble over something so they can catch him because they're looking for a reason to kill him. Okay? So let's keep going. Now Moses, this is the Pharisees, they're continuing their dialogue. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? And they're right. In the law of Moses, a person caught in adultery was to be stoned to death. Okay, so they're asking Jesus, what do you say? How do you feel about this? They're hoping that he'll say something contradictory to what it says in the Old Testament, or the scriptures that they had up to that point, what we would call the Old Testament. All right, they want for him to say something so they can catch him and then have an accusation against him so that they can kill him. That's what this is all about. That's how much they despised God in the flesh. That's how much they despised this 100% man, 100% God. How much they despised this Jesus who was doing everything that he could to have them recognize their Messiah so he could usher in the kingdom of heaven. This Jesus that would go to the cross completely blameless, completely guiltless, without any sin, to die for all of us. I can't imagine hating somebody, anybody really, that much, but especially someone that is going to die for me, take my place as a sinner. I just don't get it. But see, that's what religion does. That's what money does. That's what ego does. And the Pharisees had a whole lot of ego. That's why they had their fancy robes, and they would walk around wearing them all the time, so that Jesus even said, so you get the best seats in the restaurant. You know, they go to Burger King, they don't have to wait in line. They just get to go straight to the front of the line. The rest of us peasants have to wait our turn. That's religion. And Jesus came, again, now to do away with the law, but to fulfill the law, so that we vicariously, we fulfill the law when we trust on him. Okay? He fulfilled the law for us. But these Pharisees, they despised Jesus because he was taking their jobs. Their jobs were no longer going to be needed, and they knew that. Secondly, and I've talked about this before, it wasn't just the Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees. A lot of the Jewish people, they were waiting for the Messiah, which was good. They should have been. They should have been looking forward to their Messiah. But they were so anxious to get rid of the Romans. They wanted the Romans out of their country. They wanted their country back, that they didn't take all of the prophecy that Jesus needed to fulfill. They didn't want to hear about him dying. That showed weakness. How are you going to kick the Romans out of here if you're dead? They wanted to skip that part, or we'll come back to that later. Right now, let's get to the good part where you overthrow the Romans and we get our country back. No, the bigger battle, the more important battle, was for everybody's soul, for entrance into heaven. And that's what Jesus wanted to do first. That's what he came to do first. He came as a lamb first, to die as a sacrificial lamb for all of us. And had the Jews accepted that, and accepted that Jesus was their Messiah, is their Messiah, then later on, yes, he was going to set up his millennial kingdom. I've done that before. I've talked about that before, how on our timeline, the millennial kingdom, way out, where it is now, after the tribulation, would have slid all the way back over to where Jesus was at. He was going to set up his kingdom right then and there. I've talked about that before when they were stoning Stephen. All right. Anyway, let's keep going. Verse 6. This they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him, looking for a reason. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he heard them not. Two things here. I told you to keep in mind that he's walked into the temple. He's teaching in the temple. All right, now the temple was obviously this big building, but there's also the temple courtyard. And I'm thinking that this is where he's at, is actually in the temple courtyard. Okay, but that would still be considered the temple. But that temple, even the courtyard, would have had a stone flooring. He wasn't standing on dirt, okay? He's standing on stones, and this is important. So keep that in mind too. The second thing, I love this. with his finger wrote on the ground, as though he heard them not. As though he heard them not. In other words, he ignored them. I love that. See, sometimes that's what you have to do with certain people. It's if you're in a conversation or a debate or whatever with somebody, and you're trying to, for example, give them the gospel, give them the plan of salvation, and they just won't hear it. They just don't want to hear it. And they keep coming at you with, rebuttal after rebuttal. And that's okay for a while, because sometimes people throw a rebuttal because they genuinely want to understand. They genuinely have questions or concerns. And it's our job to help them. That's what the video that's premiering right now is all about, the plan of salvation. But sometimes people, they don't want the truth. They're not going to accept the truth. They just want to argue. And at a certain point, you just have to tune them out. That's what Jesus was doing. He's like, one, I don't have to answer to you. Do you know who you're talking to? And secondly, whatever I say, you're just looking for a reason to entrap me. You're looking for a reason to accuse me. So he ignores them. I love that. I do that sometimes. I just ignore somebody. If I know that the conversation is going nowhere, just ignore. It's the best thing to do. Hateful, spiteful, mockers, people that really are not concerned at all with what you have to say, ignore them. Ignore them. Don't let them get under your skin. Just ignore them. Trust me, that drives them nuts. Let them, let them be the ones that's stressed out and worried about that kind of thing. All right, verse 7. So when they continued asking him, they're persistent. I give them that. They just keep asking him, hey, we're talking to you. All right. He lifted up himself and said unto them, he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Excuse me. So verse 7. They're pestering him. Hey, answer us. So he stands up and he says, he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. In other words, if any of you are completely without sin, have never ever sinned once in your life, you get to throw the first stone at her. Keep that in mind as we move through here. Verse 8, and again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Now I'm going to stop there for a second, because this is the second time that it talks about how he's writing on the ground, which, like I said, isn't the ground like lawn or a pile of dirt or anything like that. This is a stone flooring in the temple courtyard. He's writing on the ground or on these stones, and people have always wondered, well, what is he writing? Never says. So we're left to surmise, to take hopefully an educated guess at this. And I believe, and I've heard other people say it too, that I believe he was writing the 10 Commandments with his finger into the stones. Don't try that at home, okay? But go back to the Old Testament, the 10 Commandments, okay, were written on tablets of stone. Now, the first set, God wrote those himself with his finger. Moses destroyed those when he saw his comrades having their drunken orgy, basically. But then he went back up, and God said, all right, I'll give you the 10 Commandments again, but this time you're writing them. So Moses had to do it. But he did it with a hammer and a chisel thing. Would have taken a long time, I think. The point being, they're written in stone. Notice, later in the Bible, it talks about the contents of the ark of the covenant. And it says that the stone tablets were in the ark. Well, what was over top? The mercy seat. Mercy above the law. And Jesus is personifying this right here. He's writing the law, the 10 Commandments, into the stones while these guys are yapping. But look what he does. He extends grace. He extends mercy to this woman. Not that he's condoning her sin. He's not winking at it. But he's extending mercy. And he stands up when he says this. Mercy. He is the epitome of grace and mercy. Mercy over the law. And he knew that he was going to fulfill the law. He was in the process of fulfilling the law. But his personification, he is mercy. He is grace. And that mercy supersedes the law. So he's not giving her a license to sin. He's not winking at the fact that she did something that was bad. All right, the Pharisees were right in that respect. What she was doing was wrong. Okay, but they weren't so concerned with that. They're just using her. She's just the the instrument that they're using to try to get at Jesus. All right. So we'll keep going. Now remember, he said, which of you that's without sin, you get to throw the first stone at her. Okay. He leaves them with that. Then he stoops down and he starts writing on the ground again. Verse 9. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience. Has that ever happened to you? That's happened to me before. Sometimes somebody doesn't even have to say anything to you. You have a guilty conscience. And in a way, I mean, that's a horrible feeling to have when you have a guilty conscience. But at the same time, that's a reminder that even an unsaved person can have a guilty conscience. There's something still within us that tells us when we've done wrong. That tells us that what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're saying is not right, and you have a guilty conscience for it. When when you've done something, maybe you've tried to cover it up, or you've lied about it, whatever else, that guilty conscience will be there. Now, there's some people that are so far gone they won't have that, but most people have that, and especially saved people, because not only do you have a guilty conscience, but you've also got the Holy Spirit pricking at your heart and reminding you, like, hey, you know what? You're a child of God. Is what you're doing right? Is this really what you want to do? All right. So anyway, and these people, they weren't totally horrible, I guess, maybe, but they were convicted by their own conscience. So they at least had that. So that's a plus. They went out one by one. So they start leaving, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. All right. So the older guys and gals, if there were gals there, I don't know, they start leaving first. Why? Because, well, they've lived longer. They've probably got a lot longer list of sins. They've probably got a whole lot more of sins or broken commandments. They've broken the commandment more often than somebody who's younger, most likely. So they're hit first. They're like, ugh, okay, yeah, she was caught in adultery, but he's saying I can only throw a stone at her if I'm without sin. Can't do it. Not in good conscience, I can't. All right. So anyway, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. Now again, this woman's, she's done wrong. I think she knows she's done wrong. And I think that she sincerely feels badly about it. I really do. I don't think she's just upset because she got caught. And there are some people that they only feel bad because they got caught. But I don't think that's the case here. I think that she felt bad that she got caught, obviously, but she also felt bad that she was doing something so horrible. Okay? So, it doesn't excuse it, but at least she had that presence of mind. At least she had that in her heart. Okay? When Jesus had lifted up, verse 10, when Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee? She said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. Now again, he's not excusing what she did. He's not saying, well, you don't deserve what they were going to do to you. He's not saying that. He's not winking at it. He's not saying, well, I'm just going to pretend that this never happened. None of that's happening. That's not what's taking place. What he's doing is, yes, she has broken the law. She has broken these commandments, this commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay? But he is the personification of mercy. He supersedes that law. And as God, he can say, all right, yes, technically speaking, because you did this, you deserve this. But you know what? I wrote that law. I am that law. And I'm going to not stone you to death. The one person that was qualified to stone her, Jesus, chose not to. Again, not because it was okay what she had done, not because he was going to pretend it didn't happen, but because he's mercy. And he's extending that mercy to her. How many times has mercy been extended to you? Not just from other people, but from God himself. Well, every time you foul up, every time you sin, mercy is extended to you as far as what Jesus did on the cross, that mercy. Now, sometimes there are natural consequences for what you do, and sometimes God has to kick in the seat of the pants because of what we do, and especially if we're doing it over and over again. All right? But Jesus chose not to stone this woman, even though that's what she deserved. Okay? But he extended mercy to her. All right? And he said, neither do I condemn thee. Doesn't mean, again, that doesn't mean, oh, that's not a sin anymore. He's not saying that. He's saying, I'm not going to condemn you. I'm not going to punish you. I'm not going to stone you. I'm not going to throw these rocks at you. But notice what he says, go and sin no more. So he's saying, I know what you did, and it's a sin. Don't do that anymore. In fact, try not to do any sort of sin anymore. Now, of course he's going to, just like we do. Even as saved people, we still have a sin nature. So we're going to foul up sometimes. But what he's saying to her is, don't take it so lightly. Don't just live in sin. Okay? Try to live as sin-free as you possibly can. Okay? I was going to stop there, but I think I'm going to go a little bit farther. Now that kind of concludes that part of the story. And again, it's just so crazy to me that your new perversions would want to take that story out of there. They would want to take that out of there. They want to minimize that, undermine it, and say, oh, that may not have even happened. What a horrible thing. That's just horrible. I don't get that. I don't understand why people continue to use anything other than a King James Bible. Don't you want God's word preserved? Don't you want all of his word? I do. Anyway, I want to get to another part, so I'm not going to read all of this, but let's go to, let's start in, I guess we'll just start in verse 12, where we left off, because otherwise the story isn't going to make much sense. Actually, I'm not going to, because I'm at a half an hour right now, and I want to keep these midweek videos rather short, but maybe in a future video what I'll do is we'll pick up from John chapter 8:12 and follow that through, because this is a great story again, a great instance of where Jesus makes it clear that he does proclaim himself as God, despite what the naysayers like to say. They always say, oh, well, Jesus never said he was God. Oh, yes, he did. And the Pharisees knew exactly what he was saying. So I'm going to stop this video. I'm going to record another one and put that up as another midweek at a future time. Just going over the rest of John chapter 8. So anyway, guys, I hope this was a blessing to you. Just a short video. A lot that we can take out of those 12 verses right there. So let me know what you guys think. I hope everything's going well for you. You guys take care, and God bless.